Welcome everybody. Today we're talking about rigging. My name is Bruce Gilson and this is another episode of Knowledge Basics. I want to thank you for joining us today. And today we're going to be talking about rigging. And what is rigging? Well, rigging is taking the structure of your building, adding structure to that structure so that you can then hang something heavy overhead. Now, I do need to take a moment to pause and talk about the literal gravity of the situation. You're about to hang a heavy piece of equipment over people's heads, and it has the potential to kill them. This is not the time to cut corners. It's not the time to use wrong materials. It's not the time to use the wrong tools. This is the time to take your job extremely seriously and to make sure that everything you do is correct. So today, we're gonna learn how to professionally rig. I do need to also say that if you're not a professional, this is but merely advice, and you definitely should have an engineer help you decide exactly how you should rig something in the air. All right, so next thing we're gonna do is we're going to do our wire rope. When working with wire rope, it's essentially, I don't know, like a lot of little bitty needles that are just kind of wrapped together. So you do want to be careful when you're working with wire rope. It really has a tendency to stab you in the finger and cause some pain. But what we're going to do is we are going to be creating our leads that go from our upper structure down to the speaker. We're going to create those leads and we're going to put a shackle on the speaker side of our setup. The reason we're gonna do it at the speaker side of the setup is because if we ever need to maintain the speaker, we're gonna be able to unhook it and take the speaker away and leave the shackles, which means that we can actually do our wire rope straight into the eye bolt upper. I'm taking my thimbles, I am kind of splitting them open so that I can fit them around my eye bolts, then I'm closing them back up. So today we're gonna be using 18 inches as our example. We're gonna make 18-inch leaders. So I've got my wire rope here and I'm gonna take a little bit out. And in my pocket here, I've got my ferrule, okay? Or copper sleeve. I'm gonna put one side through the copper sleeve. I'm gonna take the other side and put it through the thimble. I'm gonna slide that down. I'm gonna slide this back up. I want to leave about 3 fingers lengths of wire rope beyond the copper ferrule, okay? If I'm having a hard time holding this in place, let's say that it's kind of just wanting to fall out of place, I can use a Crosby. And what the Crosby does is it gives me a temporary connection so that I can hold my materials in place while I work on my materials. So in this example right now, I'm putting my Crosby on. There's something I want you to notice about this Crosby, okay? In this example, we have 2 wires, right? Now I know that it's 1 wire that's looped over, but there's technically 2 of them. The long one is our dynamic one. It's the one that's actually gonna be taking a load. The short one is our dead one. And there's a saying in Crosby world, never saddle a dead horse. Well, the large piece of your Crosby is your saddle. So in this example right here, I've set it up and I actually have the saddle on the dead side, and that is incorrect, that's wrong. You want to have your saddle on the live side. And here's the reason why. When I go to tighten this, the U-bolt is gonna cinch onto this wire, and it's effectively damaging the wire. The saddle portion is a much more surface area, and when it gets cinched down, it doesn't damage the wire. And so that's why you never want to have the U-bolt side on your live side. Now that I've got this temporary Crosby there, if I add weight and load to this line, it's not going anywhere, even though I haven't connected this yet. That's the purpose of the Crosby. The Crosby is not a permanent solution, it's a temporary solution. Our permanent solution is, now that we've got our copper ferrule in place, we're gonna take our swedging tool. Inside the swedging tool, there's all these different teeth marks, and am I pointing on the right side? No, my finger's covering up on for your side. So we're going for this 1/8 because we have 1/8 wire and 1/8 copper ferrules. All right, so our next step is gonna require some human power. So I am gonna actually step up on a chair just so I can get a little bit better leverage. And I want to start this swedge in the center of the copper ferrule. So I kind of get it started. I'm using my chest to get this whole thing started. And then I'm gonna do a swedge right there. Now that is started, okay? That is in the center. That's my first one, but we wanna get 3 total swedges in here. So we go center first, then, in the next one you can kind of pick, but I typically go lower. And then the last one I'm gonna do is going to be upper. Now, there are a lot of different types of swedging tools. This one's kind of the cheapest, most common one. There are hydraulic ones, which are really awesome. Then there's ones that have longer handles, but you can see the goal there is to get 3 complete swedges in there. So now this is a complete, fastener, all right? That's not going anywhere. So I can take my Crosby bolt off now because I don't need that anymore. Now the ferrule's actually holding all the weight. Now, I told you earlier that there's all these needles that come off this thing. If I touch this wrong, I'm gonna stab myself. So one of the things that we recommend is for you to take E-tape, electrical tape, if you're not familiar with that term, and all you're gonna do is just close this up. Honestly, guys, girls, this is primarily for your safety. Nobody else is gonna be getting up in the sky anytime soon, but you're gonna be working around this a lot, especially while you do the next one, and this is gonna prevent it from hurting you in the process. All right, finishing up this other one. Now what I'm doing is, I already prepped this side off camera, and I told you that we're gonna do 18 inches on this. I'm gonna talk a little bit about how to do that, but the way that I decided where to cut my rope, I gotta give myself plenty of extra rope. So 18 inches is gonna be from shackle to shackle, or from eye bolt to eye bolt, thimble to thimble, that's 18 inches. But that means if I cut this at 18 inches, I don't have enough to make that whole loop or whatever. So you wanna give yourself plenty of extra wire. 6 inches would be really the minimum that you would wanna do. Because we are really close to the floor here, I'm just gonna do it at 24 inches. So there's my 24-inch mark. I'm gonna cut that. And now my wire rope is ready. So let me talk about how this one's set up. The top is the same, okay? Wire rope, thimble, ferrule. And then earlier you saw me put 1 Crosby on. The 1 Crosby is really specific to, you're just trying to hold it all in place while you're working on it. If you're gonna add a load to it, meaning I wanna actually hook this speaker to this wire right now, before I swedge this, then I would do that with a double Crosby, because I wanna make sure that if I'm gonna add a load to this, that there's no chance of something failing and that load falling and hitting the ground. So in this example, I put 2 on there so that you can at least see what that looks like. I'm gonna take it off because I don't need that for what I'm doing at the moment. I just wanna make sure you're aware. If you're gonna add a load, make sure that there's 2 Crosbys to your leader. Okay, so I'm gonna take this one off because I don't need it. The way that I'm going to get this to be the 18 inches that I need. As you can see right now, I'm long. I'm at like 19 and a half inches. So the best way to do this is to take my Crosby, and I'm gonna have it just loose enough to where I can slide my wire rope inside of it, but it's tight enough to where I'm not losing my loop, okay? And that's really what the key is here. So now I can make these kind of mini adjustments until I get that 18 inches that I'm looking for. There it is, 18 inches to the bottom there. Now I know I'm good. So I'm gonna follow the same process. Throw my Crosby on just so that I know what I'm working with. Grab my swedging tool, and I'm swedge down. All right, so we're almost ready to hang the front of this speaker. So I'm gonna put my shackles on, and I'm going shackled down, and then you need to think through which direction is your pin gonna go. The pin, they're directional, they're one way. I really like to have the pins all facing the same direction. So I'm gonna go like this, so that the pins are going that direction, okay? Now, shackle down so that when I lift my speaker and I put my shackle through the eye bolt just like that, it's really easy for me to get that pin in there, okay? And that's the main reason you want to go shackled down, so I can get those pins in there nice and easy. And right now, I'm not totally focused on getting them super tight or anything, because I'm not leaving the speaker alone. I'm just getting myself set up so I can switch over to tools. And right now, those pins are plenty strong to hold me while I switch over to tools, okay? So I've got a speaker hanging in the air. Now it's not ready for me to walk away, but it's hanging in the air, all right? Now, we talked earlier that we don't really recommend a crescent wrench. We don't recommend crescent wrench for nuts. Sometimes they are really good to have, especially because these shackle pins, they're kind of like variable in size. And so I can use a crescent wrench to tighten that down. I'm gonna use a crescent wrench to tighten this one down. And before I would be 100% done, I need to add a safety wire, and we're gonna do that in a moment. But now my front is done to the point where I can start focusing on the back. I know that this isn't going anywhere. This is safe enough that if I had to go to lunch, I could go to lunch and we could deal with the rest of it later. These 2 points are the points that are holding the weight of the speaker. The third point, all it's doing is setting an angle for the speaker. So now that our weight is nice and secured, we could walk away from our speaker. I will also note that I'm missing my E-tape. Nope, it's right here. I didn't, close up this with E-tape. Once again, that's not like a requirement. It's more of a safety thing for you, and maybe if somebody's working with you or around you, because there's just a gajillion needles that are gonna stab you. So I like to make a habit of adding that to there. All right, now that our speaker front is hung, we can focus on the back of the speaker. We're gonna need to build a leader that's gonna go from this back rigging point to this point that we can begin to set the angle of our speaker. I'm gonna go ahead and start mocking that up. You know how to do that now. You don't need to watch me do that. We're gonna do it a little bit differently though, so don't think you know everything and just skip the rest, because this is gonna be just a little bit of a tweak. All right, so I told you we're gonna do the back a little bit different than we did the front. And one of the things that I just want you to note right now is look at how long that lead is. Remember earlier, what did I tell you? About 3 fingers was about the right length. Well, this is significantly longer than that. And the reason is we are going to use the wire rope to pull our speaker into its proper position. And so in order to do that, we have to have enough wire rope to actually like get our hand around. So I leave that nice and long. The other thing that we're gonna do different back here in the back is we're gonna use 2 Crosbys. Now, if you have been paying attention, I talked about 2 Crosbys are for when you're adding a load. And if you're, like, let's say you're gonna walk away for lunch, you're gonna leave a load on the wire, maybe you can use 2 Crosbys in that situation. The reason we're gonna use 2 Crosbys on the back of our leader here is we need to create some extra friction, because what's gonna happen when we set this angle is the speaker's gonna want to pull away from us as we are setting the angle. And having that second Crosby really helps us just have that extra amount of friction that we're gonna need so that it's a little bit easier on us as we begin to pull things. So I'm just prepping this wire. I've got plenty of lead for me to grab. I've got my 2 Crosbys on. So right now I don't have a lot of tension on that, just enough. Got my speaker here, and my speaker has a built-in rig point for the angle. So I've got my shackle through that, and I'm gonna put my pin in. And now I've got an angle. Now, if these Crosbys were really any more loose than they are right now, that would just kind of pull straight out. So you need to be real careful with it. On this particular type of shackle, the way to secure my shackle is through a cotter pin, all right? Now, we've been talking a whole lot about vibration and how vibration can cause your hardware to move. Well, we want to do everything we can to prevent that vibration from causing mechanical failure. So down here, we threw this cotter pin in. Up here in this shackle, what we're doing is we're putting a piece of safety wire through the shackle, through the pin, and then we're closing our safety wire so that that's not going to open up, okay? So you either got to use the safety wire on the through pin, or you need to use a cotter pin shackle, and that's what we have right now. So now we need to set the angle of our speaker. Let's assume that you know what the dispersion of audio and the area that you're trying to cover and all this stuff, and you determine that the angle needs to be 30 degrees, okay? Well, you can use your cell phone, and you can do the cell phone and it has degrees on it, or you can use an angelometer. We're gonna use this angelometer today, but the angelometer, it's designed as if it was like on a table like this, and then the table was gonna tilt. Well, we're doing a speaker face and we're actually like this. So our reference point is gonna start at 90 degrees as if we're on the face of the speaker. And then when we add it to the face of our speaker, it's magnetic. And as we add it to the face of the speaker, we can see that we're actually from 90 to 50, that is 40 degrees. So we are too tilted. So we're gonna wanna let some length out. So I'm gonna hold the leader that I've created for my hand. I'm gonna kind of slowly loosen my Crosbys, and I can feel it. As soon as it wants to let go, I can feel it. So I'm just gonna barely let some length out, and then I'm gonna set my Crosbys again. You could use a tool. I've got tools in my pocket, and you can use those, especially if it's a really heavy speaker. You're gonna wanna use a tool so that it doesn't move on you. And you're gonna wanna make sure your Crosbys are tight enough so that as I think I'm good and I begin to kind of loosen with this hand, if I feel it sliding, I don't want it to slide, so I would do it differently. So I've made an adjustment, and I went from 40 degrees because we were coming off of 90. I gave me about 4 more degrees, so I still need to come out a little bit further. So I'm gonna try that again. Let's give that one more look here. Now that I'm right on that 60-degree mark, which is 30 degrees off of 90, I'm gonna tighten these down enough to where I feel safe that they're not going anywhere. The last step is I'm gonna swedge my copper ferrule in the back. I'm gonna take my Crosbys off. I'm gonna E-tape my leader up. I can even cut my leader short. Okay, so remember I talked to you that we're gonna do the back. We're gonna tighten it later. It's really important that if we look at it from this direction, it's really important that everything go as straight to earth as possible. So if you see here, now this line is going straight down, and now I can tighten this back beam knowing that all of my lines are straight to the ground. Hey, look at that. I grabbed the wrong tool. That's the loosening tool. I needed a tightening one. Hang on. Okay. I don't know, guys. You have to find ways to entertain yourself. So we went over this earlier on making sure that this is gonna be nice and tight and how to make sure your beam clamps are correct. But there we go. We're gonna do this side too. All right, excellent. All right, everybody, we finally did it. We're at the end of our rigging series, but if you just joined us for this episode, you need to go back and watch the entire series. And the main reason is we want to make sure that you have all the information you need to be as safe as possible. We are putting heavy things in the air over people's heads. We don't want any dangerous situations. Make sure that you're also consulting with an AV professional so that they can tell you how to do it the correct way in your environment. And if you're enjoying this content and you say, hey, I wanna know more, make sure you hit the like, make sure you subscribe, give us a comment, and then we're gonna be giving you more content of how you can become an AV professional.